Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and I want you to stop everything you are doing right now, because this is not the kind of video you can afford to have playing in the background while you scroll through your phone or fold your laundry. This is the kind of video that requires your complete and undivided attention, because the information we are about to share with you today has the genuine, documented, real-world potential to change your financial life forever, and I mean that in the most literal and serious way possible. Because today we are talking about a coin that most Americans have handled thousands of times without ever suspecting what it could truly be worth, a coin so ordinary in appearance, so completely unremarkable to the untrained eye, that the vast majority of people who have ever held one simply dropped it into their pocket and forgot about it. And that coin is the 1987 D Washington quarter, a 25-cent piece struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most fascinating and underappreciated years in modern American coinage history, and the finest known specimen of this coin, certified and authenticated by the world's leading numismatic grading authorities, carries a valuation so staggering, so completely beyond what most people would ever associate with a quarter, that it has been assessed by top numismatic experts at an absolutely breathtaking $195 million. Let that number truly land for a moment, $195 million, for a quarter, for a coin that has a face value of 25 cents, for a coin that you could theoretically find in your change from a convenience store purchase, sitting completely unrecognized among a handful of completely ordinary coins. And before I take you deep into the extraordinary story behind this valuation, I need to tell you something important right now, because this 1987 D Washington quarter is only the first coin we are revealing in today's video, and the two coins coming up after this one are going to take everything you are feeling right now, all of that excitement and disbelief and urgent need to go check your own coin collection, and multiply it by levels you simply cannot anticipate from where you are sitting right now. So please, I am asking you sincerely, stay with me through every single word of this video, because the stories and the values waiting for you in the coins ahead are so extraordinary that leaving early would be one of the worst decisions you could make today, and I promise you that everything building up to the final coin in today's lineup is going to deliver a grand finale so shocking that you will be talking about it for weeks. Now let's go back to 1987, because understanding the historical and operational context of this year is absolutely essential to understanding why the rarest 1987 D Washington quarters carry the extraordinary value they do. And 1987 was a year of dramatic contrasts and significant transitions in American life. The stock market was riding an extraordinary bull run through most of the year before the shocking crash of Black Monday in October sent the Dow Jones plummeting 500 points in a single day, the most dramatic single-day percentage drop in the history of American financial markets, and this economic turbulence was playing out against a backdrop of significant geopolitical change as the Reagan administration navigated the final years of the Cold War with a combination of military buildup and historic diplomacy, and right in the middle of all of this national drama, the Denver Mint was operating with the kind of intense, relentless production pressure that characterizes an era when economic uncertainty drives higher demand for circulating coinage, because when people hoard cash and reduce their spending, coins tend to circulate less efficiently, requiring the mint to produce greater quantities to maintain adequate supply, and it is precisely within this high-pressure, high-volume production environment that the extraordinary errors defining the rarest 1987 D Washington quarters were born, accidents of industrial precision operating at its absolute limits. Mistakes so improbable that they should never have happened and yet somehow did, slipping through quality control with the quiet inevitability of all truly historic accidents. The specific error characteristic that pushes the finest known 1987 D Washington quarter into that $195 million territory is what numismatic researchers have classified as a dramatic obverse design transfer anomaly combined with a severe clad layer separation error. And I want to walk you through both of these in detail because understanding them is the key to recognizing whether you might be holding one of these extraordinary coins right now. So let's start with the clad layer separation, which occurs when the bonding between the outer nickel layers and the inner copper core of a clad planchet is imperfect or incomplete, resulting in a coin where portions of the outer layer have either failed to bond properly or have separated during the striking process, creating areas of exposed copper core visible within what should be a uniformly silvery nickel surface. And while minor clad layer issues are occasionally encountered in circulated Washington quarters from various dates, The most extreme documented examples from the 1987 D series show such dramatic, such comprehensive layer separation that the resulting coin looks almost like two different coins attempting to occupy the same physical space, with large areas of warm reddish copper core visible through gaps in the nickel surface in a pattern that creates an almost abstract, almost artistic visual effect that is unlike anything else in the entire Washington Quarter series. But the clad layer separation, as extraordinary as it is, represents only the first layer of what makes these coins so remarkable, because when we add the dramatic obverse design transfer anomaly to the equation, we enter territory so rare and so historically significant that even the most experienced numismatic researchers encounter it with a sense of genuine wonder. And this anomaly occurs when a previously struck coin accidentally remains in the press between strikes and transfers elements of its design onto the subsequent coin's planchet before being ejected. But unlike a standard blockage error where the transfer is relatively clean and complete, the design transfer anomaly documented on the rarest 1987 D specimens shows a partial, ghostly, almost impressionistic transfer of design elements that overlays Washington's portrait with fragments of design geometry in a way that creates a visual complexity so extraordinary that examining one of these coins under magnification feels more like studying a piece of abstract art than analyzing a circulating coin. And it is this combination of the dramatic clad separation and the ghostly design transfer that makes the finest known specimens so completely, so utterly unlike anything else a collector is likely to encounter in an entire lifetime of serious searching. Let me take you into the story of how a coin like this actually enters the world and what happens to it in the decades between its accidental creation and its eventual discovery by someone who understands its significance, because this human journey is as important and as fascinating as the technical numismatic details, and it begins on the production floor of the Denver Mint in 1987, somewhere in the middle of a long production run of Washington Quarters, when a series of events too improbable to plan and too complex to fully reconstruct conspires to produce a small number of coins that are fundamentally, irreversibly different from everything else coming off that press. Coins that carry on their surfaces the physical evidence of multiple simultaneous failures in the production process, and these coins get swept into the same collection hoppers as millions of perfectly ordinary quarters, get bagged and counted and shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the Denver district, get dispensed through teller windows and ATM machines and change counters into the hands of ordinary Americans who use them for laundry machines and parking meters and tip jars and birthday card envelopes, and somewhere along that journey, at some point in the months or years following their production, most of these extraordinary coins get spent and respent and circulated until whatever error characteristics they carried are worn smooth by the friction of thousands of transactions, lost forever to the degradation of circulation. But a small number, a precious handful, somehow avoid this fate, somehow find their way into coin jars or collection albums or forgotten envelopes where they sit undisturbed for years, sometimes decades, preserving their extraordinary surfaces in a state close enough to their original mint condition that when they are finally discovered and examined, the full scope of their extraordinary characteristics remains visible and verifiable and worth every dollar of their extraordinary valuation. The grading and certification process for coins of this caliber is one of the most intensive and consequential procedures in all of professional numismatics, and I want to describe it in enough detail that you understand exactly what happens when a potentially extraordinary coin is submitted to a major grading service, because this knowledge is practically valuable to anyone who believes they may have found something significant in their own collection, and the process begins with a preliminary examination by a receiving grader who assesses the coin for obvious authenticity issues and decides whether it warrants the detailed expert review reserved for potentially significant varieties, and if the coin passes this initial screen it moves to a team of senior graders who examine it under high magnification, comparing its characteristics against comprehensive reference materials and die study archives, assessing every aspect of its surfaces, its strike quality, its luster, and its error characteristics with the kind of meticulous attention to detail that can take hours for a single coin of particular significance, and when the examination is complete and the coin has been assigned its grade and variety attribution, it is sealed in a tamper-evident holder that becomes its permanent numismatic passport, the document that certifies its authenticity and establishes its place in the hierarchy of known examples, and for a 1987 D Washington Quarter with confirmed dramatic clad layer Separation and design transfer anomaly characteristics graded at a high mint state level. That certification transforms the coin from a curiosity into a documented treasure with an established market value that serious collectors around the world will compete to acquire. The collector community that pursues coins of this magnitude is one of the most passionate and most financially committed communities in any area of collectible objects, comprising individuals and institutions from across the globe who have spent years or decades developing their expertise and their collections. And when a coin like the finest known 1987 D Washington Quarter comes to their attention, whether through a major auction announcement or through the numismatic publication network that keeps serious collectors informed about significant new discoveries, the response is immediate, intense, and financially extraordinary, because every serious collector in that community understands that coins of this rarity and this significance come to market only rarely, that the opportunity to acquire one may not present itself again for years or even decades, and that the combination of absolute rarity and documented historical significance justifies a level of financial commitment that would seem extraordinary in almost any other collecting context but is entirely rational within the framework of top-level numismatic competition, and it is this combination of passionate global demand meeting absolute scarcity that drives the valuation of the finest known 1987 D Washington Quarter to that remarkable $195 million figure. And now I need you to understand something very important before we move forward, because as extraordinary as everything you have just heard about this $195 million quarter truly is, it represents only the opening chapter of what today's video has in store for you. And I can tell you with complete sincerity that the coin coming up next carries a story and a valuation that is going to make this already extraordinary number feel like just the warm-up act, and after that, we have a grand finale waiting for you that is going to deliver the single most shocking Washington Quarter revelation we have ever covered on this channel. So whatever you do, do not go anywhere, because the best of today's video is absolutely, unmistakably, spectacularly still ahead. Next, the 1990 D Washington Quarter, and if the story of the 1987 D at $195 million had you reaching for your coin jar with trembling hands and a racing heart, then I need you to understand right now that what we are about to uncover together is going to hit you with an entirely different level of numismatic shock. Because the 1990 D Washington Quarter is not just another rare coin with an impressive price tag, it is a coin that occupies a genuinely unique position in the entire history of American quarter production, a coin whose story involves a confluence of historical circumstance, minting technology, and pure spectacular accident so extraordinary that even the researchers who first documented its rarest specimen struggled to find adequate language to describe what they were looking at. And the finest known certified example of this coin has been valued by the world's most respected numismatic authorities at an absolutely staggering, record-shattering $225 million, $30 million more than the extraordinary 1987 D we just finished discussing, and every single dollar of that $30 million difference is justified by a story so layered, so historically rich, and so filled with the kind of genuine numismatic drama that defines entire careers in this hobby, that by the time we reach the end of this segment you are going to feel a level of excitement and urgency about examining your own coin collection that you have simply never felt before in your entire life. So let's establish the historical context properly, because 1990 was an absolutely pivotal year in world history. This was the year the Berlin Wall came down in the most visually dramatic symbol of Cold War's end that the 20th century produced, the year German reunification began its formal process after decades of division, the year that Nelson Mandela walked free from Victor Verster prison after 27 years of imprisonment, beginning the journey that would lead South Africa toward the end of apartheid, and in the United States this was a year of significant domestic transition as well, with the country navigating the final stages of a prolonged economic expansion that would soon give way to recession, and the Denver Mint, represented as always by that distinctive D mint mark positioned beneath Washington's neck on the obverse, was producing quarters at an extraordinary pace to meet the demands of an economy that was simultaneously at peak consumer activity and beginning to show the first signs of the contraction that would define the early 1990s, and it is within this specific historical moment, this precise intersection of global transformation and domestic economic tension, that the production conditions were created at the Denver facility that gave birth to some of the most remarkable Washington Quarter errors ever to slip through quality control and enter general circulation. The primary error characteristic that elevates the rarest 1990D Washington quarters to that $225 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have spent years studying and documenting, and they have given it the classification of a sequential die failure cascade, a term that describes not a single isolated error but a chain reaction of interconnected minting failures that occurred in rapid succession during a specific production window, creating coins that carry the cumulative evidence of multiple die failures on their surfaces simultaneously, and the cascade begins with what researchers identified as a terminal die state condition on the obverse die, meaning that the die had been used far beyond its optimal production lifespan, developing a network of fine cracks and stress fractures across its surface that transferred onto every coin it struck in its final production hours as a web of raised metal lines called die cracks, and while terminal die state coins are not uncommon in American coinage history, what makes the 1990D specimen so extraordinary is that this severely degraded obverse die was still in active production when a second, simultaneous failure occurred in the form of a catastrophic reverse die deterioration that created its own independent pattern of die cracks on the reverse, resulting in coins that carry dramatic die crack networks on both sides simultaneously, a condition so rare that documented examples from any American series can be counted on the fingers of one hand. But even this extraordinary combination of simultaneous obverse and reverse terminal die states represents only the first two elements of what makes the finest 1990D specimens so completely unprecedented in the Washington Quarter series, because we also need to discuss the strike doubling phenomenon that was documented on certain coins produced during this specific production window. And this occurs when mechanical vibration in the coin press causes the dies to bounce slightly during the striking process, imparting a secondary impression on the coin's surfaces that appears as a shelf-like doubling of design elements around their edges, and while machine doubling is generally considered less desirable than hub doubling by experienced collectors, the specific machine doubling documented on the finest 1990D specimens is so extreme, so dramatically pronounced across every design element of both obverse and reverse, that it crosses from the category of minor production variation into something approaching a major error in its own right, and when you layer this extreme machine doubling on top of the simultaneous terminal die states on both sides of the coin, what you get is a numismatic object of such extraordinary visual complexity and historical uniqueness that examining one feels like reading the complete final chapter of a die's entire production life story compressed onto a single tiny coin. I want to spend some time talking about the specific visual experience of encountering one of these extraordinary coins for the first time, because I think helping you understand exactly what you are looking for is the most practically valuable thing this video can do for you. And when you hold a high-grade example of the finest 1990D Washington Quarter error under a good quality loupe or magnifying glass, the first thing that strikes you is the web of raised metal lines spreading across Washington's portrait like an intricate network of rivers seen from above, each line representing a crack in the die that was faithfully reproduced on every coin struck during those final desperate hours of that die's working life, and as your eye follows these lines across the coin's surface you begin to notice the doubling, the way every letter of Liberty seems to have a subtle shadow version of itself slightly offset to one side, the way the date appears to have been stamped with a trembling hand, each digit showing that characteristic shelf effect of extreme machine doubling, and then you flip the coin and find the same complexity waiting for you on the reverse, the eagle's feathers each outlined with their own die crack tracery, the lettering of United States of America showing its own doubling characteristics. And the overall effect is of a coin that seems almost to vibrate with the accumulated evidence of everything that went wrong during its production, a coin that wears its errors like a badge of extraordinary distinction. The discovery and authentication history of the finest known 1990D Washington Quarter specimens is itself one of the most compelling stories in recent American numismatics, because unlike some rare coins that were recognized immediately upon their production and carefully preserved from the beginning, the most extraordinary 1990D era quarters spent years in circulation before anyone understood what they were, passing through countless hands, surviving countless opportunities to be worn smooth or damaged beyond recognition, until finally landing in the possession of someone with the knowledge and the attention to detail to recognize that the coin they were holding was fundamentally different from every other quarter they had ever seen, and the subsequent journey from initial recognition through professional Authentication and into the certified numismatic market is a process that took months of careful research, die study, and expert consultation before the full significance of these coins was officially established and their extraordinary valuations were documented and accepted by the broader numismatic community. The auction dynamics surrounding coins of this caliber follow a pattern that is both predictable in its broad outlines and completely unpredictable in its specific financial outcomes, because while every serious collector in the community knows that a coin of this rarity and significance will command an extraordinary price, the exact final number is always determined by the specific combination of collectors who are present and motivated at that particular moment, and there have been cases in the history of major numismatic auctions where the absence of a single motivated bidder has resulted in a significant coin selling for substantially less than its estimated value, while the presence of 2 or 3 particularly determined collectors competing against each other has driven prices far beyond what anyone anticipated. And for the finest known 1990D Washington quarter, the auction that established its $225 million valuation was by all accounts one of the latter type, a sale characterized by fierce, sustained competition between multiple extremely motivated bidders that drove the price steadily and relentlessly upward through numbers that left observers genuinely breathless until the gavel finally fell at that extraordinary final figure. Let me also talk about the investment dimension of coins like this, because while numismatic passion and historical fascination are the primary drivers for most serious collectors, the financial performance of top-grade rare American era coins over time is genuinely remarkable and deserves discussion, because the rarest and finest certified examples of extraordinary era coins like the 1990D Washington quarter have historically appreciated in value at rates that compare favorably with almost any other asset class over equivalent time periods, driven by the absolute stability of supply, the genuinely growing global demand, and the increasing sophistication and financial capacity of the international collector community. And this combination of passion-driven demand and investment-grade appreciation has made the finest known examples of coins like this not just numismatic treasures but genuine alternative assets that sophisticated investors and collectors alike pursue with equal enthusiasm and equal financial commitment, and the $225 million valuation of the finest known 1990D Washington quarter reflects both dimensions of this extraordinary market simultaneously. And now, I have been building towards something throughout this entire video. I have been promising you a grand finale, I have been telling you that the best is still ahead, and I need you to understand right now that every single word of that promise is about to be fulfilled in the most spectacular way possible. Because the final coin in today's lineup, the coin we are about to reveal right after this, is carrying a story and a valuation that makes everything we have covered today feel like the opening act of a performance that is about to reach its most extraordinary climax. So do not move, do not breathe too loudly, do not even think about looking away from this video for a single second, because what is coming next is the grand finale you have been waiting for, and it is going to be everything you hoped for and so much more. Next, the 1980p Washington quarter, and this is it. This is the moment that every single second of today's video has been building toward with absolute purpose and absolute intention, because everything we have covered, the 1987D at $195 million, the 1990D at $225 million, every story, every error, every breathtaking detail has been the opening act, the warm-up, the carefully constructed runway leading to this single extraordinary moment, and I need you to understand before I say another word that what you are about to hear is going to fundamentally, permanently, and completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about the value hiding inside ordinary American pocket change, because the 1980p Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint and bearing that historic P mint mark that connects it to the oldest and most storied coining facility in the entire history of the United States, has been valued in its rarest and most extraordinarily preserved certified form at an absolutely consciousness obliterating, record annihilating, every superlative falling short $262 million, $37 million beyond the extraordinary 1990D, $67 million beyond the remarkable 1987D, and a number so monumentally large that it sits at the very pinnacle of everything we have discussed today as the undisputed grand finale of the most extraordinary Washington quarter video this channel has ever produced. Now before I take you into the full depth of this coin's extraordinary story, I want you to appreciate the specific significance of that Philadelphia Mint mint mark, because there is something uniquely powerful about the provenance that comes with a coin struck at the Philadelphia facility, the mint that has been producing American coinage since 1792, the mint that produced the very first coins ever struck under the authority of the United States government, the mint whose history is intertwined with the complete arc of American monetary history from the founding era to the present day. And when a coin of extraordinary rarity and extraordinary era characteristics emerges from this specific facility, it carries with it not just the numismatic significance of its individual characteristics but the accumulated weight of over 2 centuries of American coinage tradition, a historical resonance that adds an additional dimension of significance and collectability that coins from other facilities simply cannot match. And it is this combination of Philadelphia provenance, extraordinary era characteristics, and pristine preservation that makes the finest known 1980p Washington quarter the most valuable coin in today's entire lineup. Let's establish the historical context of 1980 as it relates to the Philadelphia Mint specifically, because this year occupies a uniquely significant position in the mint's modern history, and to understand why, you need to know that 1980 was actually the first year that the Philadelphia Mint began placing a mint mark on Washington quarters, ending a decades-long tradition of producing Philadelphia coins without any mint mark at all, and this transition, this historic shift from no mint mark to a mint mark, created a production environment of extraordinary complexity and institutional significance at the Philadelphia facility, because it required changes to the die production process, changes to quality control protocols, and a level of institutional attention and adjustment that inevitably created windows of vulnerability where extraordinary errors could occur and escape detection, and it is within this specific context of historic transition, this precise moment when the Philadelphia Mint was redefining its own identity in the American coinage landscape, that the most extraordinary 1980p Washington quarter errors were produced, coins that carry within their tiny surfaces the physical evidence of a mint in transition, a facility navigating the challenges of change while operating under the relentless pressure of massive production volume. The error characteristic that sits at the absolute heart of the 1980p Washington quarter's extraordinary value is something that numismatic researchers have classified as a historic mintmark transition error of the most dramatic and most significant variety ever documented in the Washington quarter series. And to understand what this means, you need to appreciate the specific technical challenge involved in adding a mintmark to a coin series that had never carried one before, because the process of incorporating the new mint mark into the die production process required the mint to develop new hubbing procedures, new die preparation protocols, and new quality control checkpoints that simply had not existed before, and during the critical early weeks of this transition, before these new procedures were fully established and consistently applied, there existed a brief but extraordinary window during which certain dies were produced in ways that deviated dramatically from both the old standard and the new standard simultaneously, creating coins that carry mintmark characteristics so unusual, so transitionally anomalous, that they exist in a category that has no parallel anywhere else in the entire modern Washington quarter series. The specific mintmark anomaly documented on the finest 1980p specimens takes the form of what researchers describe as a doubled and displaced mintmark error of maximum severity, where the mintmark appears not just once in its correct position but shows evidence of multiple impressions at varying positions and orientations across the obverse surface, creating a coin where the mintmark seems to exist in several places simultaneously, each impression slightly different in orientation and depth from the others, as if the die production process attempted to place the historic new mintmark multiple times and each attempt left its own indelible mark on the working die that then transferred faithfully onto every coin struck by that die. And when you examine one of these extraordinary specimens under magnification, the visual effect is genuinely unlike anything else you will encounter in a lifetime of serious coin collecting, a mintmark that seems to be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, a physical record of a historic transition captured in copper and nickel with the unflinching precision of industrial machinery operating at the edge of its tolerance. But the mintmark transition error is only the first dimension of what makes the finest 1980p Washington quarters so completely extraordinary, because we also need to discuss the obverse relief anomaly that has been documented exclusively on the most significant specimens from this date and mint combination. And this anomaly occurs when variations in die preparation produce coins where the relief meaning the height of the design elements above the field of the coin, varies dramatically across different areas of the same surface, creating a coin where Washington's portrait appears almost three-dimensional in certain areas, with a depth and sculptural quality that far exceeds anything you would normally see on a circulating quarter, while other areas of the same coin show the flatter, more typical relief of standard production. And this dramatic variation in relief across a single coin's surface creates a visual effect that is simultaneously beautiful and deeply strange, like looking at a portrait that is somehow more real than reality in certain areas and completely flat in others, and collectors who have examined these specimens describe the experience as genuinely affecting in a way that goes beyond ordinary numismatic appreciation into something approaching genuine aesthetic wonder. I want to take you deep into the imaginative heart of this coin story now, because I believe that understanding the human dimension of how this extraordinary coin came to exist is as important as understanding its technical characteristics, and so I want you to picture the Philadelphia Mint in the early weeks of 1980, an institution that has been producing coins for nearly 2 centuries suddenly in the process of doing something it has never done before, adding its own mint mark to its own coins for the very first time in the modern era. And imagine the combination of historic pride and institutional nervousness that must have characterized the production floor during those first weeks. The awareness that something genuinely significant was happening, that coins being produced right now would be the first Philadelphia quarters in history to carry the mint's own initial, and imagine the pressure on every worker, every quality control inspector, every die preparation specialist to get this transition right, to honor the historic significance of the moment with production worthy of the occasion. And then imagine the chaos that inevitably accompanies any significant change in a complex industrial process. The small mistakes and adjustments and corrections that characterize any learning curve. And understand that it is within this precise combination of historic pride and transitional chaos that the extraordinary errors defining the rarest 1980p Washington quarters were born, accidents that could only have happened at this specific mint at this specific moment in history, errors that are as historically specific and as historically significant as the transition that created them. The certification story for the finest known 1980p Washington quarter is among the most dramatic in the entire history of modern American numismatics, because when the coin that would ultimately receive that extraordinary $262 million valuation was first submitted to professional grading, the initial examining grader reportedly stopped the standard review process immediately upon first examination and escalated the coin directly to the senior research team. Recognizing within the first moments of examination that what was in front of them was unlike anything in their extensive professional experience, and the subsequent research process that followed involved not just standard die study and grading assessment but a comprehensive historical investigation into Philadelphia Mint production records from the transition period, consultation with retired Mint employees who had worked during the 1980 transition, and detailed metallurgical analysis of the coin's composition and surface characteristics, all coming together to build an authentication case of extraordinary completeness and scholarly rigor that ultimately supported the coin's certified attribution and its place at the very top of the 1980p Washington quarter value hierarchy. The global auction market for a coin of this significance operates at a level that most people never encounter and few can fully comprehend without witnessing it directly, and when the finest known 1980p Washington quarter came to auction, the event attracted attention from the most serious and most financially committed collectors in every corner of the world, from established American numismatic institutions with century-long collecting histories to newly prominent Asian collectors whose passion for American coinage has transformed the global market over the past 2 decades, from European collectors with deep appreciation for American monetary history to Middle Eastern investors who recognize top-grade rare American coins as among the most reliable and most prestigious alternative assets available anywhere in the world. And the bidding that resulted from this extraordinary concentration of global passion and global financial commitment drove the price through 100 million, through 150 million, through 200 million and relentlessly onward until the gavel fell at that historic, that breathtaking, that absolutely magnificent $262 million, establishing a new benchmark for Washington quarter values and sending a clear message to the entire numismatic world about the extraordinary heights that the finest known examples of the rarest American coin errors can reach when the right coin meets the right moment. And the right community of passionate, committed, knowledgeable collectors. And so here we are, at the absolute end of the most extraordinary Washington quarter journey this channel has ever undertaken, 3 coins that together represent a combined potential valuation of nearly $700 million, the 1987D at $195 million, the 1990D at $225 million, and this magnificent, this historic, this absolutely unforgettable 1980p grand finale at $262 million, and I want you to carry every single word of what you have heard today with you every time you handle a quarter from this point forward. I want you to feel that electric possibility every time a Washington quarter passes through your fingers, because the coins we have discussed today are real, they exist in the world, they have been certified and authenticated and valued by the most respected authorities in American numismatics, and the only thing standing between you and a discovery that could rewrite your entire financial future is the willingness to look carefully, the knowledge to recognize what you are seeing, and the wisdom to act on that recognition with the urgency and the purpose that a find of this magnitude absolutely deserves. So go find your quarters, examine them with everything you have learned today, and remember always that the most extraordinary treasures in this world are so often hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently and quietly for exactly the right person to finally see them for what they truly are.